Hello and welcome back to the next episode of Speculative Dude Reviews. I'm your host, Speculative Dude. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I am not looking forward to doing this review. This is probably the first time I feel almost completely unprepared, but I promised I'd give my honest opinion. So let's, talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Wow. The reason I feel really unprepared for this one is because I don't think I've ever felt quite as conflicted about a movie as I do about this one. It's one thing to sit there and say you like or you don't like a movie, but when you start doing, I think anybody who does reviews knows that once you start sitting down and really taking a look at movies, unfortunately, two problems crop up. One, even movies that you find are great you can still find a million problems with. And two, when that happens, you start picking apart movies that have potential and deconstructing them so much that, that even if they're decent, they may seem lousy. Now, yeah, I know those two kind of go hand in hand, but, there's just some things that you look at and just go, wow, that is, just difficult. Now, I know a lot of the fan base is really has really enjoyed the first Amazing Spider-Man and this one as well. But I also know there's plenty of people that, that can't stand it. I'm seeing almost a similar reaction to what happened last year with Man of Steel. It seems like, half the people like it, half the people absolutely loathe it. And for me, like I said, it's split. There's a lot of potential in this movie. That's for sure. I'll point out some great aspects of it when I get to the end. We'll go over some. I'll go over the other plot as usual. We got spoilers, so. You have Peter as we have Garfield here. He's back as Peter Parker. I'm gonna be honest. He looks older in this movie than he was in the first Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I didn't really like the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, but he at least kind of looked like a teenager. Here, I don't know, there's something about him, he just seems older. It's like, for some reason looking at him, I don't buy that he's in high school anymore, and I can't quite put my finger on why that is. But, okay, he's supposed to be graduating high school. The opening scene, again, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people said they like the wisecracks and that go on during, while he's fighting. One, well, yeah, there were some in that opening scene. I didn't. They either felt kind of forced, or it just seemed not. I was like, this is really not the time to be wisecracking. And I know that's kind of what Spider-Man does, but. Again, I like watching other people's reviews, and there was one person, and I can't remember who it was who said it, but I think they said it very well. This one, this Spider-Man seemed more cartoony than like the '90s cartoon Spider-Man. I'm not really a big fan of the Spider-Man comic books, but I have, kind of enjoyed the Spider-Man movies. It's kind of the same way with the X-Men. I kind of liked the movies. I didn't think they were awesome, maybe, but I liked them enough. But I've never been a fan of the X-Men comic books. Though, again, I did like the '90s animated series. Same thing for Spider-Man. I liked the animated series, never really was a fan of the comic books. But I liked the movies, and for the most part, even though as with anything, like I said, I can pick apart a movie just as well as anybody, point out all the little flaws, but, sometimes I like to sit back, and I do find myself, a little embarrassed that sometimes I'll sit there and even though I know a movie isn't that bad, I'll be able to sit back and enjoy it, and I won't want to critique it. Because it's like, okay, it's just, movie fun. And I'll be honest, for anyone who is a critic out there, I think sometimes you need to have those kind of movies. I know there's some people that try and, I've seen some people who try and do critiques on every single movie they ever watch, and it's like, whoa, slow down. That's going to cause you to hate movies. Really, I believe. That's, if you start picking apart every movie, then even movies you love will all of a sudden look terrible by comparison in it. And as I said, this is, this is a movie, again, getting back to the movie, this is one that really had a lot of potential. Some things going in that you knew were going to happen. Okay, we knew Electro was going to be in here. We knew the Green Goblin was going to be in here. We knew the Rhino was going to be in there. There were some massive disappointments in that the Green Goblin doesn't show up until, less than 15 minutes left in the film, and even then, his actual role is less than, his actual role is less than, it's probably a 3-minute scene that he's actually the Green Goblin in, 3 or 4 minute scene that he's actually the Green Goblin. It's, very disappointing. The Rhino, the chase scene that's at the beginning of the movie where he's, Spider-Man's wisecracking and trying to, that chase scene looks absolutely ridiculous. I hate it because, plus the guy who's, is the Rhino, shows up at the end is played by Paul Giamatti, who I think is, honestly, I think is a really good actor. I think he's a very good character actor. But at the same time, when he shows up as the Rhino is literally the last 2 minutes of the film. You see him at the beginning, he's the guy driving the truck, then he's thrown in prison, apparently, he's arrested and thrown in prison, and you don't see him again until the end of the film where he's the Rhino, and it's terrible. It's just, I was like, that was, it's shameless pandering to fans, because all the posters, most of the posters showed the Rhino. It's like, oh, this has happened. No, it did not happen. It's, I like watching comedic reviews. If you ever watch, I encourage you to check out Doug Walker's bum review of this one, and it's literally, the Rhino, I'm in the movie, and that's it. He makes a joke about that, and that's very accurate. It's so disappointing. And I know this is all pointing towards the Sinister Six, but I don't think I've ever seen anything that was sequel banking harder than this movie was. Which, considering it's going to make money, this movie's going to make money anyway. I don't think it really needed sequel banking like they did, and that's one thing that really bugged me was. Now, I know a lot of people said that Iron Man 2 was nothing more than a gigantic ad for Avengers, which I didn't completely agree with, but I do see why some of the people said it. This one was absolutely nothing more than a gigantic, in my mind, nothing more than a gigantic ad for the Sinister Six. This was not a movie that should have. They should not have forced all this stuff into the movie. They could have spread this out a little bit more. And that's really what happened. The only thing that really felt natural here, except for some minor points, was the romance between Peter and Gwen Stacy. Again, spoilers for anyone who doesn't know, she dies at the end of the movie. They tried somewhat to make it similar to the comic book. I don't know, you can debate whether or not it was successful, but it didn't feel like it had the same weight as her death in the comic book did. That's definitely for sure. In the comic book, he had to make a choice between trying to save over here and then trying to save her, and he tries to save her and ends up accidentally. It's debatable, but it's accidentally killing her in the process. Here, he does something similar. He shoots his web. He catches her, and it's debatable as to whether the whiplash of trying to stop her kills her, or the fact that you see her kind of hit the ground too. Her head hits the ground. So it's now granted she was falling, so she would have died either way. It's pretty much a given. But at the same time, in the other one, in the comic book, it was very clear that she died because of Peter, and and here it's like, okay, not only is it kind of debatable, but it's it doesn't have the weight. It wasn't like he was trying to had to make a choice between the two characters. Also, we have Harry starting as the Green Goblin. Norman Osborn gets one throwaway scene. It's like, Chris Cooper cameo. And that's it. It's like, I'm dying, I have a disease, you have it too. I was like, but this much, and I went to see it with one of my good friends, and he had a very good point. Even though there really is no background for Harry and Norman in this one, other than the bit of exposition that they give in this scene, you still learn more about them and their motivation in that one scene, and you actually care a little bit more about those characters in that one scene than you do about anyone else in the entire movie. You know, you get the resentment between Harry and Harris, which again in the comic books there was a little bit of that, but not like they've really shown, and even in the Sam Raimi movies, they've really shown this kind of almost animosity between Harry and Norman. It's like that didn't exist in the comic book, at least not in most itinerations of the comic book. You know, I'm sure there have been some rewrites in that have put it in, but. You know, and here, Harry very much resents, his Norman for shipping him off to, boarding school and, never getting around and all, the typical usual. And unfortunately, again, you get the thing of, like, forced friendship. Peter Parker shows up, he hears Harry's name. Oh, Harry Osborn? Goes to see him. Oh, yeah, we were friends together, we haven't seen each other in 8 years. It's like, good thing I've mentioned you. It's like, good thing me saying, Harry Osborn, shows that we clearly have a background in friendship and relationship. They try and show that these guys were buddies, but it just doesn't, it doesn't feel believable. And not that they couldn't be friends, because in the Sam Raimi movies, and I'm not saying the Sam Raimi movies are necessarily better, but it's like, at least the friendship was established. They went to school together. They were shown as that. Norman knew Peter through Harry. He knew him. It's just not, it doesn't feel, like a real friendship. It doesn't feel like they really actually knew each other. Looking at these two, hearing their dialogue, I just didn't buy it. Again, not good writing. You get Harry becoming the Green Goblin at the very end of the movie. Basically, in essence, it's a lab experiment gone wrong, so to speak. You get he's trying to cure the disease that his father had, and he believes that Spiderman, aka Peter's blood, can cure him. Spider-Man refuses to because he thinks it could do more harm than good. In some ways, that's understandable. And he does do. I mean, it does at least show him debating whether he should or should not help. But of course, there's the obligatory scene of his father saying, "Oh, this is my discovery. They're going to use it for weapons." And I get that they put that in there, but at the same time, it felt really forced. Through a good chunk of this movie, Peter is pining for to know what happened to his parents. Interestingly enough, specifically his father. It's like his mom was with his dad, but she's hardly mentioned. So, I mean, they do show in the opening scene of the movie them getting killed, what happened, etc. And him being left with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. But it all feels ridiculously forced and contrived. And I know it's a comic book movie, but you're supposed to do some things that make you want to suspend disbelief, and this one just to me doesn't do a lot of those things. It just doesn't feel like I could suspend my disbelief and say that, okay, I actually think this happened. Now, that being said, that goes directly in with I guess you could call him the main villain, or at least from all the ads, is Electro, played by Jamie Foxx. Now, normally I like Jamie Foxx. I was a big fan of his TV show back in the day. I've liked most of the movies he's been in. I think he's a really good actor. Here, I think he does a good job with what they gave him. But I don't think they gave him very good, not good direction, but I just don't think they gave him a very good script to work with. I get his character. He plays a very lonely guy, Max Dillon. I am glad that they didn't go with the comic book version of the Electro suit. That would have been quite laughable. But the one they gave him still is like kind of, okay, it looks like he's got I don't know, it's like a diving suit with a battery meter attached to the side of his head. But he starts out as he's very obviously a very lonely guy. He's the kind of guy that it's like you see him every day, but you don't really pay attention to him. And not because you want to, but it's like, okay, you feel like he doesn't have any presence. And I mean, that's the character he plays. He does that very well. He's a very, very lonely character. Spider-Man saves his life during the opening chase scene. Uh, you know, and he feels, granted, he sees his name on his little lapel badge there. Of course he works for Oscorp. Everybody in the city works for Oscorp. Everybody related in any of these movies has something to do with Oscorp. Heck, the Rhino was stealing stuff from Oscorp. Yeah, that's another thing. But he goes and he sees his name on his lapel. Max he's like, man, Spider-Man noticed me, and he goes through this kind of weird obsession. And I know some people actually do have these kinds of obsessions with celebrities, etc. But it's kind of taken to a little bit too much of an extreme here, in my opinion. Where he starts deluding that Spider-Man's his best friend. Like there's this one scene where they're showing all the newspaper clippings and all these things, and you hear radio callers on the radio, and he calls in and start defending Spider-Man to the radio station. If you don't pay attention, you almost miss it actually. But he's like, this Max doing, Spider-Man saved my life. He's my best friend. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, and of course he's not his best friend. He doesn't really know him. He was trying to be nice. And there's nothing wrong with somebody trying to be nice, but he's taking it to an extreme, to say the least. Again, like I said, turning it into an obsession. Well, the character, Max, he works at Oscorp. He apparently helped design the city's power grid, which Oscorp appropriated and used without his consent. Of course he's resentful of it, but he's at this time he's the kind of guy who would cower in the corner. He doesn't, he won't really stand up for himself. Like there's one scene where he has an image in his head of him standing up for himself against one of his bosses. And then, then it just snaps back to reality, and it's like, okay, that's in his head, that's what he wanted to do, but he won't really stand up for himself. It's his boss tells him to he's going to have to work overtime, whatever. He does it. He goes, there's a problem, in the grid, and this again goes to, I get that you're supposed to be suspending disbelief again because of the comic book aspect, but essentially they make it look as if this power grid is being run, the power is being drawn and amplified through electric eels. Electric eels. He gets his electro powers because when he's trying to fix something that's gone wrong on the grid, he falls into a vat of electric eels and is attacked. He gets his superpowers by falling into a vat of electric eels. At least when Peter got his spider powers by getting bit by a radioactive spider, there was some form of explanation behind that. The spiders had been mutated. There's, they've been experimenting on them, etc. Heck, even the Raimi films did that. We've genetically modified these. And essentially these, this movie did the same thing. These spiders have been genetically modified. There's no explanation here. He just falls into a vat of electric eels and is attacked, and essentially comes back to life as Electro. Realizes that not only can he, I get this distinct feeling that he's more like a battery than a simple conductor, because he draws power in and then unleashes it. And just simple science there. There's so much that goes wrong with the science behind it that it's like, I'm sorry, I can't suspend the disbelief here. You know how they kill him off at the end? Spider-Man, now, if you don't remember this from the first movie, you're gonna forget it, or you're not gonna understand it, because this scene is, does absolutely no setup. They decide, Peter and Gwen decide they're gonna try and save him, or I should say destroy him, by overloading him, as I said, like a battery, overloading Electro. Well, if you remember in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, they mentioned that the webbing that Peter has is a type of metal filament. And of course metal conducts electricity. So Peter literally, there are these gigantic wires, conductors, everything. It's supposed to be running the city power grid, and he shoots a web between the wires, so there's a current running through it, and then shoots it up at Electro, so that there's enough current running through his little web to overload Electro. As someone who really likes science, and I like superheroes who are based around science, I just had to groan at that. Because it's like, there's no way that little filament line can conduct that much electricity. There'd be too much power loss. It just, again, and I know a lot of people may not understand that, or may not know that, but it's like, and like I said, if you don't even remember the first movie, you wouldn't even remember that his webbing was actually a metal filament. That's, you'd think it was just, organic web, which it's supposed to be, but not. Oh, and speaking of which, one reason why I really hated him in the first movie, in the comic books, it's well established that Peter develops, after observing spiders, develops the web shooter and the actual, filament that he uses, the organic filament that he uses to make the webs. Here, he steals it from Oscorp. When he's there, getting a tour of Oscorp, he sees that they have created this, and he literally steals it later. It's like, didn't think he was supposed to be stealing stuff. Yeah, sorry, that doesn't exactly put me in mind. He stole his web, his web stuff. It's like, that doesn't put me in mind of liking this hero. Putting that aside, there's just so many things that are wrong here. Like I said, how Gwen Stacy died. I mean, I get that, but there was the scene doesn't have the weight that it had before. Harry is the Green Goblin instead of Norman. Now, I know that in the comic books, Harry does, at certain points, depending on the history, does become the Green Goblin. But it's, having him as the Green Goblin first. I know they tried to do it because they built tried to build a relationship between Peter and Harry, but it failed. It's not. It doesn't come off as a believable friendship. It doesn't. I've already mentioned all that. Now, okay, I've been complaining about this movie a lot, but there are some things that it does well. For the most part, the visual effects are great, really good. I'm not gonna lie, the fight scenes, look great. Though the one between Peter and the Green Goblin is put in such a confined space that that one doesn't come off as great. But the fight scenes with Electro come off as really, really good. And unfortunately, and this is what the thing that frustrated me the most about the Rhino, even if you were just gonna have the Rhino make a cameo, that at the end of the movie, I really wanted to see that fight because, okay, in the comic books, the Rhino isn't, he's just a really strong guy who wears a suit. Yeah, he has some alteration, he's altered, but it's not a mech suit. Here, it's a mech suit. It's got guns that pop out, it's got, tons of other stuff, and I don't have anything against that. I actually kind of like mecha, but if you're gonna set up that suit and that scene, show the dang fight scene. They basically, essentially, it's one of those things where, you've seen in the commercials where Peter, weds a sewer, lid to a manhole cover, and is swinging around, and just as it's about to hit Rhino, that's literally the last shot in the movie. It's, and it cuts to credits. It's like, that's not, no. You're going to build up a cool suit, and the odds are, because of that, it's probably not going to be in the next movie. It just, very disappointing. It's like, that I would have liked to have seen that movie. That probably would have been a heck of a lot better final fight than the one with Harry, with Green Goblin. You know, so it just, but like I said, but I will say this, like I said, the Rhino suit is really cool. I mean, it's at least an original concept. I'll be honest, I liked it a lot better than the mech suit for Silver Samurai and Wolverine, even though I did like the Wolverine movie. I didn't mind this one being a mech, a mech suit. Versus I did actually mind that Silver Samurai and Wolverine was a mech suit. But like I said, it had, like I said, some great ideas, just didn't come together well. Like I said, the romance, like I said, between Peter and Gwen, for the most part, is very believable, except for one part, and that is or at least to me, and that is when they've been apart for a while. They see each other, and like she says something about she found this little, I think she said it's Korean restaurant that she likes to go to, and he's like, oh yeah, it's you go there a lot. She's like, how did you know? He's like, you told me. She's like, it just opened last month. Like, yeah. She's like, have you been following me? It's like, yeah. I mean, he admits that he's been following her, trying to keep an eye on her. And she's like, how often? It's like, once a day, maybe more. It's like, and she takes that to be very flattering. It's like, that's stalker behavior. That's not cute. That's little. It's like, okay, dude, you need to back off. That's a borderline obsession. That's not good. That's the only point where I didn't really believe that they, could have been a real couple. I do think Emma Stone does a great job. I mean, yeah, she's different from Gwen Stacy in the comic book. I didn't really mind it too much. Though here, now I will say this, in the comic book, obviously Peter is a genius, or supposed to be a genius. That's how he does his Spiderman. That's how he does his gadgets, which haven't really been shown all that much, but they're there. If you read the comic books, they're there. He does all kinds of science stuff. And he's very smart. Like I said, Gwen in the comic books, it was a product of its time. Gwen was a product of the time, so she was, she was still, she got killed, she was the damsel in distress, etc. Not that she was a bad character, it's just that she wasn't there as much. Here, she obviously has much more presence. She's, I think at some points they try and make her seem a little too smart. Now, they don't do it as much in this movie, but, except for that she claims she knows all about the power grid. It's like, you just got out of high school. I know they've been building up that you're supposed to already be working at Oscorp, which I don't really buy in the first place. So it's like, they built you up as like Mr. Fantastic level genius. You're probably not going to public high school with Peter if you're really this smart. And she goes, like, she gets a scholarship to Oxford in this one, which is nothing wrong with that. But it's like, yeah, they built her up as this, really as a super genius, and it's like, it's not that I don't buy it with her character. It's just, it seems like they were building her character up a little too much to me. I'm glad she's not just the damsel in distress. In fact, if you watch the first movie, she helps Peter a lot. And she helps him here too, not as much, but she does help him. Especially, like I said, with the power grid and that. But it's just like, I don't know. I like Emma Stone. She's good at acting. She's better than Garfield is, that's for sure. But, it just, I don't know, like I said, something about, and again, it was the writing. It's something about the writing, just like, I don't know. I think, honestly, it comes down to some degrees that I think they have trouble writing a strong female character who isn't a normal person. It's like, believe it or not, women can be strong characters and be a normal woman. Problem is, too often it goes to two extremes. Either they're so, awesomely good that they don't need help from anybody, or they're supposedly the every woman, and then they're just portrayed badly, usually in a sexist light, just needing a guy and all that. there's nothing wrong with having a normal woman in a movie. She can have a strong character, and that's granted that's a debate for another. Week. But like I said, I don't know. Somehow I just didn't believe the buildup that they gave her in this one, or in the first movie into this one. I said Garfield again. I think he's terrible. I don't think this kid is a good actor. They keep saying, "Oh, he's such a gorgeous guy." I was like, I'm a guy. I'm confident in my own masculinity enough to say, it's like he's a good-looking dude. It's like Garfield is not a good-looking dude. Garfield looks like a goofball. I was like, Harry, I can't remember the kid's name who played Harry. Somebody else mentioned this again. He looks like emo Peter from Spider-Man 3. It's like, really? It's like, well, there's just so much. There was potential in this movie, and they botched it up. And, that's why I was, granted, I didn't go in with high expectations. Like I said, I didn't like the first Amazing Spider-Man. Didn't go in with high expectations, but like I said, there was enough in here to catch my interest and then be disappointed by it. And that's honestly almost worse than going into a movie and hating it. Because it's like, just, like I said, I'm very conflicted. Like I said, I almost want to like this movie, but I can't. I just can't. That's just the way it is. And like I said, of course, the sequel begging, made it even worse. It's like, okay, we know you're trying to make a series of this. That's fine. That was never in doubt. I don't think it was. I don't think anyone ever thought that they weren't going to make a series of movies out of these. But the sequel begging is bad. I know a lot of people have said, "Oh, they're just hinting at it." I was like, "That's not hinting." Okay, when it's that blatant, you're not hinting at anything. And I'm gonna stop this video now because otherwise I'm gonna start ranting again. And this one's gone on long enough. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say with this movie, because it's, again, so much potential and so much wasted potential. But, alright, coming up soon, next week we got Godzilla coming out, so, look forward to that. I'll also be continuing my video series on racing movies, so see what happens there. For now, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Speculative Dude, out.